I'd say it's not something that I actively participate in as much as I'd like to, but I used to. I like to paint, but I wish I did more painting. Yeah.
A lot of my favorite things to do are I like to be outside in the summer, whether it's going to baseball games, golfing, playing softball, or kind of just spending, not necessarily spending time in natures, but like spending time outside in the sun.
I grew up in the LDS church, and I think we stopped attending when it was shortly after I was baptized when I was 8. So I think that was around 9. And we never really went back to church, didn't really participate in anything. I kind of went down probably not the best path. And I was dating these guys that weren't treating me right, and I kept praying and praying and praying for God to bring somebody into my life that loved Jesus, because I just felt like I needed that. And I started working at Addison, and I saw this really handsome gentleman, and I think 2 years after working there, we started dating. And that's when I started learning to love Jesus and fully accept him and bring him into my life, and kind of forgive myself for a lot of the things, because I kind of thought that I was broken and unworthy of God's love.
For me, I was born and raised in the church. Not necessarily like front pew, but I've always kind of had that relationship distant through my parents, through my siblings or whatever. But more like recently, my faith has been sculptured and changed and improved, or whatever you want to say, over the last few years. One, like moving out of your mom's house and kind of establishing who you are as a person and finding your faith. And then that's section 1. And then section 2, you get into a relationship and you have to establish what your partnership's faith is. And then you get married and you have to kind of reestablish it. And then taking this job as the youth pastor here at Gig Harbor, kind of you had to redefine it again. And going to church without my family for the first time ever in my life was something that I didn't expect to be hard, but then expected it to be a lot harder than it has been. So just most recently being able to see God work in that avenue through the last 7.5 months, being able to build deeper relationships with people in our community, in our church, being able to kind of stay true to what we believe now, and being able to kind of maintain rhythms, which we don't have, but we're trying. We're getting there. But also kind of just building deeper connections and relationships throughout our community, into our church, and more ultimately with Jesus.
I would say that a way that I've seen God at work in my life recently is I've dealt with anxiety and depression, actually diagnosed since I was like 14. And it's definitely been a really rough road, but since I've come to my faith, I've been able to navigate it a little bit better, and be able to, I guess, process things a little bit better. Recently, probably in I'd say the last 6 or 7 months, there's been a lot of really big change in our lives, and we've definitely had a lot of highs and a lot of lows, and I haven't really been or known how to process that. I've had my doubts, and kind of, I don't want to say lost my way in my faith, but there was a point that I was just kind of like what's the point? Like, but I think recently, especially the beginning of this year and just kind of just the last few months, I've kind of not tried, but I've noticed how present God is in our lives, and just all the change that's been happening. I know now that it's all for good, and that I'm taking the last few months and seeing them as an opportunity for growth. So,
as someone who doesn't like to admit that they need help, it took a lot for me to essentially humble myself and ask. Whether it was asking Sarah or asking Pastor Keegan or Pastor Jamie, and or many of you, but being able to grow up spiritually, physically, mentally, and change what I was raised with. When you start to look for where God's moving in your life, you're going to start finding where God's moving in your life. And being able to get up every day and look is something that has changed our lives immensely over the last 7 months, especially the last 2 or 3. Being able to see God move and actively name it and own it and give credit and glory to where it's due has changed our lives. So I guess knowing that God's always present, but also knowing that he's in control, and then when you're willing to name it and to show it, it changes you. I think that's it. We love you.
Action! You're recording this right now.
is it
I know.
recording? Oh.